My fiancé slept with my best friend a week before our weddings. I let them marry each other and sent the truth to everyone they know. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. At 30, I had everything I ever wanted: a stable job, a small house with a backyard big enough for Sunday barbecues, and the woman I thought was my soulmate, Hannah. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 1, and in a week, I was supposed to marry her. Every morning, I'd wake up next to her and think, this is what peace feels like. Our wedding was set in the countryside, a quiet vineyard just outside town. Hannah had spent months choosing the flowers, tasting cakes, and arguing with the planner about chair ribbons. I laughed every time she stressed about tiny details, teasing her with, "No one's gonna care about the napkin color, babe." She'd roll her eyes and say, "You just don't get it. This is my dream." I didn't realize how heavy those words would later feel. My best friend, Marcus, was my best man. We'd known each other since middle school, 2 awkward boys who became brothers in everything but blood. He'd been there through every heartbreak, every failure, every small victory. Hannah adored him too. At least, that's what I believed. They joked together, planned surprises, even teamed up to throw me my bachelor party. I used to smile watching them talk, thinking, this is what trust looks like. But lately, something felt off. Marcus had started dodging my calls. Hannah seemed quieter, distracted. When I'd ask if she was okay, she'd brush my hair back and say, "Just tired, babe." Wedding stress? Her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Still, I pushed those thoughts aside. I told myself every couple feels nerves before marriage. I just didn't know the nerves weren't hers. They were guilt, hiding in plain sight. Marcus and I grew up together, 2 kids with scraped knees and oversized dreams. We built forts out of cardboard, cheated off each other's math tests, and promised that when one of us got married, the other would be the best man. That's how unshakable we were. Over the years, our lives took different turns, but our bond stayed untouched, or so I thought. When Hannah came into my life, Marcus was the first person I introduced her to. I still remember her first words after meeting him. "He's charming." Maybe a little too charming. I laughed it off, thinking she was joking. Marcus winked and said, "Relax, man. Your fiancé's safe with me." We all laughed. It felt harmless. But looking back, that moment plays like the opening scene of a tragedy too casual to notice, too real to forget. Hannah and Marcus eventually became close. She said he made her feel comfortable when I was busy with work. Sometimes I'd come home to find them laughing in the kitchen, sharing inside jokes I didn't understand. I used to feel lucky that the 2 people I loved most got along. I never imagined that same comfort would be my undoing. Marcus helped with every part of the wedding, picking suits, organizing the bachelor party, even comforting Hannah when she got overwhelmed. I trusted him more than my own brother. When I got stuck working late, I'd say, "Marcus can drop you home." She'd smile and say, "Yeah, he's sweet." And every time I said thank you, he'd clap me on the shoulder with that same grin and say, "Anything for you, man?" Back then, I thought those words meant loyalty. Now, when I replay them, I hear something else, something colder. It's strange how betrayal doesn't begin with lies. It begins with trust. At first, it was little things, moments, so small I almost felt guilty for noticing them. Hannah started locking her phone, something she'd never done before. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd laugh and say, "You're turning into a jealous groom already." Marcus, who used to text me about everything, football games, dumb memes, weekend plans, suddenly went silent. If I called, he'd answer with, "Hey man, I'll call you back," and never did. One evening, we were at a dinner party with some mutual friends. I caught Marcus watching Hannah from across the room, not in a friendly way, but like someone studying something fragile and forbidden. When our eyes met, he looked away, pretending to check his phone. Hannah laughed a little too hard at one of his jokes that night. I told myself I was imagining it. Later that week, I walked into the living room and found them whispering about something on her laptop. The second I stepped in, they froze. Hannah shut the screen. Marcus cleared his throat and said, "We were just checking the playlist for the reception." It sounded rehearsed. I nodded and forced a smile, but inside, a seed of doubt began to grow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying their glances, their timing, their sudden shared silences. Every time I asked Hannah if something was wrong, she'd sigh. "Babe, it's just the wedding stress. You're reading too much into everything." Maybe she was right, I thought. Maybe I was paranoid. But then Marcus stopped showing up altogether. No calls, no texts. Not even updates about the bachelor party he'd promised to plan. I stared at my phone one night, thumb hovering over his contact, debating whether to call. But something in me whispered, "Don't," because deep down, I already knew the answer. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. The weekend before the wedding, I surprised Hannah with a short getaway, 2 nights at a quiet lake resort, just to breathe before the chaos. She smiled when I told her, but her excitement looked forced, like she was trying to remember how happiness was supposed to look. Still, I brushed it off. I wanted us to have one last peaceful memory before we said I do. The first night was perfect. Dinner by candlelight, soft jazz, and her laughter echoing off the water. But the next morning, everything changed. Hannah had stepped out to take a shower when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't even glance, but this time, the name glowing on the screen made my stomach twist. Marcus, it wasn't the name alone. It was the message preview. "Last night was perfect. I can still taste you." I froze. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it over the running water. My hands shook as I unlocked her phone, the same code she once told me you can use anytime. And in that moment, my entire world imploded. Hundreds of messages, hidden under a fake contact name. Weeks? No, months of flirting, confessions, hotel bookings. Photos, her calling him baby. Him calling her mine. Every line cut deeper than the last. I scrolled until the words blurred and my reflection stared back at me from the screen. A man who had no idea. The people he loved most were destroying him when Hannah came out. Wrapped in a towel, she saw me sitting on the bed with her phone in my hand. The color drained from her face. "You weren't supposed to see that," she whispered. I wanted to scream, to demand why. But no words came out, only a silence that said everything. And in that silence, something inside me broke. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at the phone. The room felt small, the air thick, every sound muffled under the weight of what I just read. Hannah stood frozen by the bathroom door, clutching her towel like it could protect her from what she'd done. "Say something," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Please." I couldn't. My throat felt raw. My mind replaying every lie she ever told, every "I love you," every night she said she was too tired, every smile she gave Marcus when she thought I wasn't looking. Finally, I managed, "How long?" She didn't answer, just tears. Then she muttered, "It didn't mean anything." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound that didn't feel human. "Didn't mean anything? You told him you loved him. You called him your real soulmate." Her lips trembled. "It was a mistake." I got confused. "You were always busy, and I slammed my hand against the dresser. "Don't you dare blame me for this." The words echoed off the walls, sharp and hollow. She flinched like I'd hit her, and for a second, I hated that I still cared enough to feel guilty for raising my voice. She sat down, crying, muttering apologies that didn't mean a thing. I picked up my jacket and walked out, needing air, space, anything that wasn't her voice. Outside, the wind was cold and heavy with rain. I stood there, gripping the railing, trying to breathe. For years, 4 years of loyalty, sacrifice, and love, all burned to ash by two people I trusted most. For hours, I wandered aimlessly, replaying everything in my head. The late nights, the locked phone, Marcus's distance, it all made sense now. But the cruelest part, I wasn't angry yet. I was just hollow. The rage hadn't even begun. When I finally drove home, I didn't pack her things or scream or demand closure. I just sat in my car for hours, letting the rain blur the windshield until it looked like the world itself was breaking apart. I wasn't the man who begged or fought for answers anymore. Something colder had taken his place, a man who wanted silence, precision, and revenge. That night, I didn't tell a soul. Not my parents, not my friends. I didn't even confront Marcus. Instead, I started collecting screenshots, chat logs, photos, timestamps. Every lie had a receipt, and I made sure to archive them all neatly in a folder labeled The Truth. The next morning, Hannah acted like she didn't know what I'd seen. She greeted me with forced cheer, offering coffee, her hands trembling slightly. I played along. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "Can't believe the wedding's almost here." Her eyes flickered, panic mixed with confusion, and she just nodded. That was the moment she knew something in me had changed. When I finally saw Marcus, he had that same easy grin he always wore. "Big week, huh?" he said, slapping my back. For a second, I almost admired how effortlessly he lied. I laughed and said, "Wouldn't have it any other way." "Brother," his smile faltered for just a moment, like his conscience had tugged at him. But then it was gone. Later that night, I overheard him talking to one of our mutual friends. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. His voice was low, smug, and dripping with arrogance. She was mine before she was his. He just doesn't know it yet. Something inside me clicked. Not shattered, clicked. The pain hardened into clarity. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to let them destroy themselves. I'd just hand them the match. After that night, everything I did had purpose. Every smile, every word, every fake moment of affection was part of a plan that neither of them saw coming. I wasn't their victim anymore. I was their audience, waiting for the perfect act of poetic justice. The next day, I called my cousin Ryan, the one person I trusted more than anyone. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt, just listened in stunned silence. When I finished, he said quietly, "You could burn them down with this," I replied. "That's the idea." We spent hours building a digital trail, every text, every picture, every lie arranged into a single file. I wrote a message for it. If you've received this, it means the truth deserves to be seen. Ryan helped me duplicate my guest list, friends, family, colleagues, everyone invited to the wedding. When it was ready, I saved it under a new folder on my laptop titled Wedding Day. Meanwhile, Hannah and Marcus acted like nothing was wrong. She tried to be affectionate again. "You've been distant, babe. Are you okay?" I'd pull her close, look her straight in the eye, and say, "Just thinking about the vows." She smiled, relief softening her face. Marcus, on the other hand, kept avoiding me, guilt written all over his fake smiles. It was almost funny watching them squirm under the illusion that their secret was safe. The final touch came 3 days before the wedding, when I confirmed the catering, double-checked the guest count, and ordered the photographer to capture everything. I wanted proof of their joy, their nerves, their final moments of pretending, because on the day that was supposed to be mine, I was going to give it to them, wrapped in truth, witnessed by everyone they loved. The day before the wedding felt surreal, like watching a movie I no longer belonged in. Everyone around me was buzzing with excitement, and I smiled just enough to keep the illusion alive. Hannah was glowing, but it wasn't the glow of love. It was the radiance of someone who believed she'd gotten away with it. Marcus arrived late to the rehearsal dinner, nervous and sweaty, cracking forced jokes that didn't land. I could almost smell the fear under his cologne. When Hannah introduced him to a few of her relatives, she reached for his arm without realizing it. That tiny, instinctive gesture told me everything. They were drowning in guilt, and every polite laugh, every clink of champagne glasses only dragged them deeper. During dinner, Rian caught my eye from across the room and gave a subtle nod. Everything was ready. The emails, the evidence, the timed delivery. He'd even set up a backup in case anything failed. My entire life, every betrayal, every broken promise was now condensed into one digital trigger. All I had to do was press send. That night, I watched Hannah sleep beside me for what I knew would be the last time. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, like she hadn't just shattered my soul days before. I studied her face under the dim light, the woman I'd once planned forever with, and felt nothing. Not love, not hate. Just a cold emptiness where my heart used to be. I opened my laptop, hovered my finger over the folder titled Wedding Day, and whispered, "Tomorrow. You'll get what you deserve." Then I closed the lid and turned off the light. Lying beside her in the dark, both of us pretending to dream about a future that had already died by morning. One of us would wake up free. And it wouldn't be her. The morning of the wedding arrived with unsettling calm. The sun was bright, the sky too clear, like the world was mocking me with its perfection. Guests filled the vineyard, music floated through the air, and I stood there in my suit, steady and unreadable. Everyone thought I was just a nervous groom. In reality, I was a man standing at the edge of his own rebirth. Hannah looked stunning in her white dress. When she walked down the aisle, people gasped. Some even teared up. I watched her smile, pretending it was for me. Marcus stood beside me, straightening his tie, eyes avoiding mine. He whispered, "You okay, man?" I smiled faintly. Better than ever. As the officiant began to speak, I felt the phone in my pocket, Ryan's final text, "Ready?" My thumb hovered over send. The officiant turned to me. "Do you, Daniel, take Hannah to be your—" I cut him off. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I think someone else deserves this moment more." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I stepped back, turned to Marcus, and gestured toward Hannah. "You two should go ahead. You've been practicing long enough." Silence. Hannah's face went pale. Marcus stammered, "What the hell are you talking about?" I didn't answer. Instead, I tapped send. Across the hall, phones buzzed in unison, one after another, like a chorus of truth. Confusion turned to shock as guests began reading. Murmurs rose, then gasps, then chaos. Hannah dropped her bouquet. Marcus tried to grab her hand, but she yanked away, sobbing, "You said no one would ever find out." I turned calm as ever and walked down the aisle alone, the same aisle where I was supposed to promise forever. Cameras flashed, people whispered my name. But I didn't look back by the time I reached the door. The life I'd built was burning behind me, and I'd never felt lighter. I didn't need to look back to know what I'd left behind. The gasps, the shouting, the sound of a wedding collapsing in on itself. By the time I reached my car, the group chat notifications were already pouring in. Some messages were stunned. "Is this real?" Others furious. "You did the right thing, man." And a few, the ones from mutual friends, just said, "Holy shit." I drove away from the vineyard in silence, still wearing my wedding suit. My reflection in the rearview mirror didn't look angry or broken, just empty. I parked by the river a few miles out and watched the sun set, my phone buzzing nonstop beside me. Every vibration was another ripple of the truth spreading through our lives down by nightfall. The news had made its rounds. Marcus's fiancée, yes, the one he dated before Hannah, called off her engagement immediately. His company, where several of my friends worked, got wind of the affair, and word spread fast. Within days, he was put on leave for unprofessional conduct. Hannah's parents called me in tears. Not to defend her, but to apologize. Her father's voice cracked when he said, "I raised her better than this. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, I hope she figures herself out." Marcus tried calling that night, 15 missed calls. Then came the texts. "Bro, please, let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I deleted every one of them, and Hannah. She showed up at my door 2 days later, still wearing the ring I'd bought her. Her eyes were swollen, voice shaking as she said, "You ruined my life." I just looked at her and replied, "No, Hannah, you did that yourself." Then I closed the door quietly, finally, completely. But as I leaned against it, alone in the silence, the truth hit me harder than anything else. Even after all that justice, I still didn't feel free. Weeks passed in a blur of silence. I didn't return calls, didn't answer texts. I took time off work, spent days walking aimlessly, just trying to remember who I was before all of this. The house was too quiet now. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. Her mug still sat by the sink. I kept telling myself I should throw it all out, but every time I tried, my hands froze. Betrayal doesn't disappear when the person does. It haunts what's left. Then, one afternoon, Ryan called. "You might want to sit down," he said. They got married. For a second, I thought I misheard him. "Who?" "Hannah and Marcus," he said softly. "Last weekend. Courthouse wedding. No guests, no family. Just them." I laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. They burned down their lives for each other. And now they think marriage will fix it? Ryan sighed. "It won't. Word is, they're already fighting." Marcus's family cut him off. Her parents won't speak to her, and he lost his job. They're living in some cheap apartment on the edge of town. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not with anger, but with something darker. Pity. I pictured them in that tiny place, surrounded by the ashes of everything they ruined. Forced to live with the only person who reminded them of their guilt. A few weeks later, I accidentally ran into an old friend of Marcus's at a cafe. He looked at me and said, "You heard? They're miserable. Constant arguments, money issues. She's paranoid he'll cheat again. It's ugly." I just nodded. Sounds like they deserve each other. Walking home, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not the loud kind that comes from revenge, but the quiet kind that comes when karma finally starts working on your behalf. I didn't need to ruin them anymore. They were doing that themselves. It's been almost a year since the wedding that never happened. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to feel that same hollow ache in my chest, but it's gone now. Replaced by something gentler, quieter. Peace doesn't arrive like a storm. It seeps in slowly through the cracks left by pain. I sold the house a few months after everything ended. Packed up the memories, boxed away the photos, and left the city behind. I found a small apartment overlooking the coast, where mornings start with the sound of waves instead of the echo of broken promises. I started therapy, picked up old hobbies I'd abandoned: guitar, running, cooking. Bit by bit, I started rebuilding the version of myself I'd forgotten in that relationship. Every now and then, I hear updates about them. A friend mentioned they split up, something about Marcus cheating again, Hannah leaving town to find herself. I didn't feel satisfaction when I heard it. Just closure. They were both still searching for something real in a world they'd ruined with lies. Last week, I opened my email and saw her name again. The subject line, "I'm sorry." For a second, I hovered over it, curious, nostalgic, maybe even a little human. But then I closed it, selected delete. and watched it disappear without ever reading the words, because some stories don't deserve sequels. That night, I stood by my balcony, watching the sunset fade into the sea, and whispered to myself, "You made it through." Not as revenge, not as triumph, but as quiet acknowledgement that I survived something meant to break me. People think revenge brings peace, but the truth, forgiving yourself for trusting the wrong people, that's the real victory. And as the waves crashed below, I finally felt it, the calm I'd been chasing since the storm began.